Okay, so let's actually create some confidence intervals to answer some real-life questions, and let's use StatCrunch to help us now. So we have a Pew poll conducted in 2013 that surveyed a random sample of 2003 Americans. 18% of this sample said they had seen a ghost. So what we have here is we have our sample size of N so far, and we have our sample proportion, or our p hat, of 18%. We want to estimate the standard error if we can, if we're allowed to, and we want to find an approximate 95% confidence interval for the percentage of all Americans who believe they've seen a ghost. So this is our whole population, all Americans. That's who we want to estimate about. Is it possible to conclude that out of all Americans, 25% or more of them believe they've seen a ghost, based on this one survey where 18% said that? Could we make that leap? Could we make that jump? Is that even possible? Okay, first of all, we have to check our CLT conditions to see if we can continue. So the first condition is, do we have a random sample with independence? And I do see the key phrase here, that this was a random sample that was taken, and if we take a truly random sample, then our observations should be independent. Someone's yes or no answer to this should not affect somebody else's yes or no. So we're good there. We have to check, is our sample size big enough? So that's where we have to check, is n p hat greater than or equal to 10, and is n 1 minus p hat greater than or equal to 10. Well, our n is 2003, and our p hat is 18%, and 1 minus 18% is 82%. So we have to find both of those. Both of these happen to be plenty bigger than 10. So we are good there. Sample size is large enough. And third, we need to check, is the population large enough? Is the whole population greater than or equal to 10 times the sample? Okay, so our sample was 2003. And what's our whole population? That's all Americans. Now, I don't know how many total Americans there are, but are there more than 20,030 of them? Yes, of course there are. So we're good there. So our CLT applies. That means we can use our standard error formula. Square root of p 1 minus p over n. Let's calculate that out. Let's put that in. So p is 0.18. 1 minus p is 0.82. Divide by 2003. Do the rest of that in your calculator, and you should get about 0.00858. Okay, so that much we can do on our own by hand. So what we're going to do now is go to StatCrunch and have it actually find this confidence interval for us. What we're going to need to tell StatCrunch is we're going to need to give it the number of observations, which we had 2,003 people sampled, and we got their info back, so that's our observations. And then we also need the number of successes. Now, sometimes success is kind of a weird word here, because success just means what was I looking for? So I was asking these people, and I'm interested in the ones that said, I believe I've seen a ghost. So how many of those were there? We actually have already calculated that in this case. Sometimes you have to calculate it now. But we've already figured out that 361 people said they had seen a ghost. Okay, so this is what we need to tell StatCrunch when we get there. So I'm going to open up StatCrunch, and we need to go under Stat and Proportion Stats. So everything in Chapter 7 and 8 are proportion stats, because percentages are proportions. We're using a percentage here, right? 18% or 25%. We're talking all about percents. This was a single sample. And we have a summary. So we don't have a list of yes, no answers. We have the summarization of that. So here you can see we want to tell it we had 361 successes out of our 2003 observations. I do need to choose confidence interval. And notice that it's preset to 95%. If you need to find a different level, then be sure to change that, but we are good here. And it gives us back some of the information that we had put in, and it also tells us our lower and our upper limits. That's what we want for our confidence interval. We have our lower limit and our upper limit of our confidence interval. So we can flip back over here now and say that our 95% confidence interval is from that lower limit, which was, if I make it into a percentage form, that was about a 16.3%. And our upper limit in percentage form was about 19.7%. Okay, so this tells us a few different things. It tells us that if we were to conduct many surveys, 95% of them, I don't know why this keeps turning off here, 95% goes there, would contain the true population proportion, whatever it really is. And 5% of them would result in intervals that do not, put not here, contain that true proportion. What's important for us is that inside this interval is where we are 95% confident that the true value is in there somewhere. 25%, notice, is not in that interval, or it's outside of that interval. So what that means to us is that it is not plausible that 25% of Americans believe that they have seen a ghost. Anything in that interval is plausible. Anything outside of that interval is not plausible to us. Okay, I'm going to try to fill in these blanks that for some reason were not sticking earlier, so bear with me. I have no idea what's happening here, guys. Hopefully you caught that, or you can go back and rewind and see those. What's important to us is that the confidence that we have is in the process or the method that we're using to create these confidence intervals. It's not in any one particular interval. So be careful about the wording of the questions in your MyLabs Plus homework. We'll always put one in here that is like a distractor where it says that there is a 95% chance. That is not the wording that we want to use. We are 95% confident in our intervals, but it does not mean that there is a 95% chance that the true value is going to fall in between there, okay? So just watch out for that. They always throw that one in, the one that says the word chance, and if you pick that one, it's going to be wrong. Pick the one that says, I am 95% confident that. That's what we want to say. So your good sentence to use for these is to say, like, I am so much confident, whatever level it is, 90, 95% confident that the true value of whatever it is we're talking about is between these two values. That's what we want to say. So it's the confidence that we have. It's not a chance.